Okay, so we're ready to go with our next element on stage one, and that's a discussion on P2P strategies, and this is sponsored by GEP. I've asked my panel to introduce themselves. They know who they are and what they do an awful lot better than I. So maybe we can go down the line and start with you, Juliette.
Thank you. My name is Juliette Atway. I'm head of global procurement and business travel at Wiz. Wiz is a cybersecurity company that focuses on making sure the cloud is secure, protected, and compliant.
Thank you. Tulsi.
Tulsi Narayan. I am the Executive Vice President leading commercial payments in MasterCard. It's a payment technology aspect where I'm coming from today. So we not only provide cards, as you know, but we provide virtual card technology that gets embedded into the procure-to-pay platforms, and that's the business that we are currently growing in Europe. So very excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Tulsi. Wayne?
My name's Wayne Bell. I'm the head of procurement at Cancer Research UK. So I suppose it's a name many of you would have heard. So we're the largest cancer research charity in the world. We obviously primary focus is to fund the research into cancer. So we are solely reliant on the donations and fundraising, various activities and events, as well as our trading network of charity shops. And I've been at Cancer Research for the last 6 months.
Wayne, forgive me, will you just expand on what it is you procure at a charity like Cancer Research?
So, very broad range.
Yeah.
So a lot of money is spent in terms of our marketing and fundraising activities, various events. Also our trading, so we've got about 600 retail stores around the country. Obviously within that we've got a big RT department and all the corporate services around that as well.
As well as, yeah, a massive amount of indirect. That's great. And finally, Vinay from GP. Yeah.
Hello everyone, my name is Vinay. I'm a senior director, part of the Europe consulting practice for a firm called GEP. We are almost 25 years old firm. We are AI-powered procurement and supply chain solutions company. We provide an integrated solution around advisory, managed services, and technology in the space of procurement and supply chain. In the past years, we have worked for Fortune 500, Global 2000 companies, helping them to overall improve their stakeholder and shareholder value. The focus has always been in terms of cost management and basically helping them to build a very strong, value-oriented, and cost-conscious procurement function and supply chain function. Regarding today's topic, P2P, it's quite close to my heart. Last 15 years, I've been working in the area of procurement transformation and strategic cost management. And over here, P2P plays a very key role in terms of enabling organizations to run a very effective procurement function. But over the last, if I were to consider 25 years since my firm has been originated, I've seen P2P go through a lot of phases. So earlier it was more of like a very manual, paper trail-based process. Then eventually you had the early electronics phase, wherein you had in-premise systems. But at the same time, it was quite investment intensive for all the organizations to go for it. And then slowly we are currently in the era of digital and cloud solutions. And we are at the cusp wherein we are moving more towards the AI solution. And it's very exciting time because overall I'm seeing the cost to serve organizations as far as P2P is concerned going down. Organizations are getting more agile and nimble to try new things. There is this spirit of entrepreneurialism as well within the client organizations. Earlier they were very measured in terms of what they want to try as far as P2P is concerned. But now they want to test it quickly, fail quickly, and learn from it and move on. So that's what I'm observing across our client organizations. So overall, very excited to be here as part of this panel to discuss about the strategies.
I wonder whether then, just drawing on what you said there, what makes an effective P2P strategy today? Because clearly what is today wasn't the case last year, the year before. It's changing so ridiculously quickly. So what's an effective strategy today?
I think overall, it could mean different for different organizations in terms of what they are trying to solve, and that's what they need to be conscious of as well. I mean, in the past, it was more about buying a off-the-shelf solution and trying to implement it, and expecting success. But then, I've observed organizations going through that initial enthusiasm, then value of disappointment, and so on and so forth. But right now, I think, as far as strategy is concerned, it's more about being very clear in terms of what you're trying to solve for your organization, trying to leverage as much as possible with regards to what AI, machine learning has to offer overall, ensuring that you build very strong processes, because it's not only about just the technology. Process also plays a very key role here. And there are, of course, the human resource element as well in terms of ensuring that there is right level of sponsorship, change management, collaboration across different teams. I would assume that all of the panelists would have observed challenges around bringing about change when it comes to implementation of P2P.
Yes, I feel like when I joined Wiz, I was the first function in procurement. So there was no process, no policy. No one heard about the relation between procurement, between payment, and there was this one credit card that everyone used.
Does that ring a bell at all?
Yeah, that was not a good credit card, but I feel like one thing that I have learned is to adapt where is the business at. Not only what the business do, is also realizing that, okay, if we're in the first year, do we actually need all of the processes? Do we actually need all the policy? And always challenging ourselves and adapting where the organization is maturing. And the procurement process, the payment process is not the same as when I was in the first year and this year, which is my 5th year at Wiz. So I feel like this is my key learning is only adapting where is the business at. Yes.
No, I was just going to, because Juliet makes a really interesting point, and she's normally when we think about procure to pay, it's a lot of automation effort has been on the initial parts, and it's what we've seen a lot of companies do. When you optimize singular points, you don't get the end-to-end benefit. So, and when you think about what a procurement sort of functions value add, they are so critical to adding value to the firm through strong supplier relationships, managing those through changing demands, and you must have gone through a massive growth story as well. So that function has to really rely a lot on data, the optimal payment methods, because not only can you secure strong supplier relationships, but you actually have a lot of value add from a working capital management perspective as well. So what I think, where Vinay was talking about the initial adoption of technology, what we are seeing now is a holistic view to it. So you take the automation part, you include payment optionality as well, which is very interesting. You were talking about having a single credit card, but you have to take and I'm coming from a payment practitioner's perspective, adopting the right payment technology or optionality to suit the supplier is really important, because that's often where the friction sometimes lies. You may have the most slick invoicing process, but if the last mile fails, that's where the calls and the friction and all of that happens. And it's really the procurement function's job with the procure to pay, the entirety of it, how do you manage that? And in this global environment, that is really a difficult thing to manage, right? Because there is more fragmentation happening. How do you deal with those risks? Risk management has now come into it very strongly. So third-party risk management was something people did every 6 months, 8 months, 10. But now it's a real thing, and you have to have it more continuous, not manual. So the responsibilities and the onus on the procurement teams have widened, and they are also looking at it more holistically. So I think there's a lot more, and to your point, you'll see new things come in, because the sort of responsibilities of the whole process and the way procurement teams are looking at it is also shifting. So you'll see more and more new topics come in for sure. And it's interesting what you were saying about the payment aspect of it, because that optionality is really critical, the last mile to really secure your supplier relationships.
So for us at Cancer Research, we've been, and then coming into it, we're also particularly finance focused, so ensuring that we're strengthening our governance, our finance controls, also our compliance. Obviously within that is improving our visibility. We can probably assume what was happening, but now we've gone live with our current P2P system a few weeks ago. So what is really important is that visibility that we all obtain. I'm a big believer in terms of we can't manage what we can't see, but what's important, we get this visibility now, we've got to use that visibility in working with our stakeholders in terms of addressing challenges that we have, but improving things going forward. And then we're going to move into a phase of focusing on our supplier relationship management as well.
So if you're just early in that journey then and implementing, talk about how you've sorted the data problem, the big D word, and the piece that Tulsi was referring to, which is managing your suppliers and making sure that interface is smooth.
So on the data side of things, it's been a challenge in terms of where we are now. We know, so there's data that's going through, but we know it's not all, there's some dirty data in there.
Sure.
So we're going through that process but we know that the more data we get going through, our processes that we put in place will clean that data. So and as part of that visibility, we're going to be in a bit of a reactive place in terms of, we are seeing this now and addressing it. Whereas as we address it from the reactive phase, next year we'll hopefully go into a more proactive phase in terms of we've got improved visibility. We know where this is going. We can address it before it becomes an issue as well.
And yes. I'm guessing, Juliet, that a company such as yours, which is utterly tech focused, yes, your data must be as pure and clean as the driven snow.
Yes.
Not.
Yes.
Did you have problems implementing?
I think data can be accurate only if you have automation processes, yeah, and a software tool that actually can have all of your suppliers in one place. This is what was not accomplished in my first year and not even in my second year, because I was more heavily on the Excel sheet and everything around that. But I do feel like fast forward today, when we implemented Zip, we do have much further details data that we can rely on. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, in my experience, I think data does play a very key role. There are various elements linked to it, right? I mean, first is, of course, ensuring that your data is clean enough, which you can leverage on when if you are doing a transition from an existing way of working to a new way of working with a new P2P system in place. Data security is also an issue as well. And finally, I think so it's also the data migration, which you need to do from one system to the other. I mean, my suggestion generally to my clients is that, it's better to do it in a phased manner, right? Rather than going all big bang across all the different business units or locations they would have, like, regional presence. I think so it's better to start small and then scale up accordingly. And recently we have started also, seeing the positive effect of AI as well in the case of data cleansing, right? I mean, earlier data processing, which used to take almost a week to do, now can be done within a matter of 3 to 4 hours with the help of AI. Again, the output may not be 100% right, but it's close enough for us to get to a point wherein we leverage that data to build an ongoing, P2P process within the organization. Yeah.
If just a couple of points to add to this, data visibility is extremely critical, because without tag data, you can't build the right predictive models, and that's where we are going. But if I add the supplier end to it, as a supplier aspect to it as well, they have to receive the data and run a reconciliation process at the back of it. And again, when you think about the segmentation that procurement teams might do, you have your strategic suppliers, but you have a massive tail end of suppliers, that an ad hoc spend, where the level of effort to manage them is almost as much as your strategic suppliers, because they have the same reconciliation needs, they have all of those. So that's where I think the data angle is really important, not just for the procure-to-pay teams, but also from a supplier angle. And if you think about where payment technology is also going, with virtual cards, the physical card was a thing of the past, but virtual cards embedded into your procure-to-pay platforms already transmits, level 3 data that can be used for reconciliation. And that's where I think if you take that end-to-end approach, you actually can start mapping out what is it that I need to do from an end-to-end perspective to reduce noise, friction, and make sure that the procurement teams are focused on what's most critical, manage their strategic suppliers to the best possible extent. And that's where we are seeing from a compliance perspective, from a data and ease of engagement perspective, delayed payments, managing all of that. We are seeing more and more teams look for that payment optionality, not use one size fits all, but what works for them end to end to make sure the supplier gets paid on time, has the reconciliation data, has the payment visibility to make sure they're not chasing, all of those aspects to reduce the noise in the system.
If there are any questions, we'll take them throughout the panel discussion. So put your hand up, we'll get a microphone to you. And if you're watching online, then please just use the chat function on the screen that you have there. They come directly to my iPad, and I'll try and relay those across to the panel. And having said that, I just better check if anyone... No one's asked a question yet online, but if you do, they'll come straight through to me. So we've touched on a million different topics. And I guess we've got to get our AI over it and done with. Use cases that you are now seeing that people can here take away and adopt, and any novelty trinkets we can get hold of.
Yeah, I think so. One of the things is having the conversational style of engagement with the P2P system. Like earlier, even with the introduction of digital and cloud-based P2P systems, still. The interface was quite clunky. You would have to go to a page and you would have to select the required categories, suppliers. But now it is more conversational. So within GEP, and I'm sure other organizations as well, the competitors, they do have this capability now in terms of engaging directly. I want to buy this, and then it would guide you towards the right buying channel. Because ultimately, even though it's one procure to pay, but internally there could be multiple platforms through which you would be buying. Yeah. For example, if it's more travel related or events related, it would be a different buying channel as compared to something which is more linked to, say, a production facility, compared to something which is more related to, say, contingent workforce. So earlier, you would have to have knowledge about which buying channel to go to, and that was also a source of frustration because over here, the panelists, they're all procurement and supply chain experts, but not everyone in an organization is. They have their day jobs to look into. But now it is very easy in the sense, you would go to a landing page, just type a question, and it would guide you towards the right channel. What we are also observing is that in terms of selection of suppliers, now the system would advise you based on what your requirement is. Likewise, if you are at a stage wherein you have selected a supplier for a given specification, it would prompt you that, based on historical buying patterns, this is what we have chosen in the past. So is there any reason why you are veering away from it? So these are some of the use cases. There are many such cases as well. For example, even on the goods receipt side, right? Earlier, you would have to go into a system and accept that I have received the goods or the product or service. But now it can be more conversational style, right? This is something I had requested, I have received it, and then the system would automatically register it at their end. So these are some of the early indications of what AI could bring to the table. But I'm sure there is more to it as we go along this journey.
I was really struck by Dirk in the previous keynote, talking in detail about this amazingly broad use of AI across his company to huge effect. I just wonder if there's any other uses that you are planning or that you would plan given the budget.
For us, I feel like I use AI every day to make my emails sound more professional. But I think it's the same as any system or automation. We need to know how to use it in the end of the day, and if it makes our life easier, that's what I told my team every day. Use it, go ahead. And I feel like now, also Zip is trying to do a lot of a feature in AIs, and everything can make our KPI on responses better and easier. And to get there, it's always achievable.
Where we are seeing quite a bit, and a lot of the big tech platforms are looking at it. It's the predictive nature of predictive AI. It's not necessarily the snazzy generative AI aspect, but predictive AI has been in use, and MasterCard uses it a lot for fraud detection and those sort of aspects. But equally, if your systems are connected to the overall ERPs, it's a component of it, then you can use it more from a predictive aspect to forward order or manage your suppliers better when you are, especially if you are in a growth phase. So predictive agents, that's something that we are definitely seeing quite a bit of. And then orchestration, optimization. So every aspect, there's always a choice to be made. And, as rule-based optimization is quite limiting. But here, when you have multifunction, you can see optimization that can be done at different stages. Whether it's at the payment stage to say, what is the best payment option for you given the supplier status, your cash flow position, and what you should be doing. So if your treasury systems are connected and data is tagged and provided, that is a very, very powerful tool. Predictive analytics, again, can be used a lot when you do third-party risk management, which increasingly procurement and risk management teams have to do on a more proactive basis. Yeah. So where there is proactiveness needed, optimization needed, AI will be transformational, not to make the decision, but give you a suggestion or optionality that's whittled down.
Yeah, regarding predictive analytics, even in the case of, say, demand forecasting, it is playing a very major role. It's helping organizations to optimize their inventory linked to, say, MRO category or even direct categories, which again is helping to overall optimize the working capital. And I think that going ahead, as this technology, especially with regards to predictive analytics, as it improves, it will also help in terms of the financial and budget planning as well. Currently, the way I see it, procurement processes, accounts payable process, and the FP&A process, they are still operating in a very siloed manner across certain organizations. Exactly. But I see that coming all together, and I think so the data which is generated from the P2P is going to be playing a very crucial role in terms of making that happen overall. Yeah.
I'm interested in the idea of AI not just enhancing, but seriously enhancing your risk analysis, because that is presumably an area where it is clearly spotting trends before we can. How is that being applied, or is it being applied across all industry at the moment? Are we in the infancy?
Is your question more in terms of applying AI more related to procurement activities or overall?
To risk management within procurement?
Yes, it has been, in the sense, for instance, if there were to be any geopolitical situation developing, now the system does prompt you.
Well, of course. Yeah.
Earlier you had that, but not to the extent as what it is right now, wherein the system actually reads through who are the suppliers you're currently engaging with, what level of open POs you have in place, what has been your historical buying pattern with regards to certain suppliers, and as and when certain geopolitical situations are developing, it kind of is able to connect the dots and then say, okay, we might have some trouble linked to this particular supplier not being able to meet their lead times. It would also compare it with what has been the historical compliance to lead times, and then it would prompt you in terms of, do you want to hedge your risk by maybe going to the market and searching for another supplier? So these are, some of the other cases we see developing when it comes to overall risk management.
One of the, over time, supply chains have got very fragmented. So when you think about concentration risk as well, you look at your level 1 supplier, it normally doesn't paint the complete picture. There have been many instances where there have been single points of failure at level 2, level 3 suppliers. So it's now procurement teams have to look at not just your level 1, but your level 2, level 3 to see if there's a geographic risk or there's a massive concentration risk in terms of that. And that's where I think AI, being able to trawl and consume huge swathes of data and come out with, the risk, as opposed to humanly you would just look at the top level risk. But that's no longer sufficient, not only because of the geopolitics, but because supply chains have become very, very fragmented, and often they all converge at level 3. They may converge, which it might not be very visible. And equally, from a risk management perspective, you will now be, companies have to look at what is their exposure, not just at a level 1, but level 2 and level 3. And you have to look deeper into your supply chain. So all of these requirements sort of lend themselves. You need some, not an augmentation, but an analytical tool to really look at how do you deal with those risks.
Yeah, I mean, right now it may seem like, there's a bit of overcrowding as far as AI is concerned, but if you were to look at it fundamentally, right, I mean, what has happened is most of the companies have pivoted towards a system which captures most of the data electronically. And earlier, there wasn't a means to, skim through all this data and try to make a story out of it. But right now, because of AI, it's constantly being processed, and you are being able to build models. You are able to run different scenarios, and then come up with a reasonable idea about what could be the outcome. And as a result, then the system is prompting you to take an action. I mean, of course, the overlying wrapper over here is AI. But if you were to look at it fundamentally, it's more about ensuring that you are able to constantly process your data and try to make some intelligent story out of it.
I wanted to go into these use cases for a reason, that there is a strategy here. Some reflections over today and yesterday. I was speaking to quite a few people yesterday from companies who are in very different places in their journey to even just automating some tasks. And definitely in the deployment of AI in their P2P strategies. And then from Cooper yesterday, I picked up on a great big slide here which said that 95% of AI projects in this country apparently fail, which says an awful lot about not picking your use cases and not interrogating your problems deep enough first before you start. So I'm wondering if there's some advice from the panel for anybody watching who about their P2P strategies, to upgrade them, to bring them into the next level, to future-proof them for the next, should we say, 2 years. What is your approach? What should we be changing and considering? I don't know who wants to pick up on that.
I can go. I think if you expect AI to come in and run everything on autopilot, then
clearly not.
Yes. You have some. That may not be the right approach. I think so. Overall, oversight is required. I also came across the statement about 95% of the AI experiments not yielding the results. At the same time, it is getting you somewhere. I would be worried if, after that, people stop investing in AI projects. I mean, that's not something which is happening currently, so which is a good thing. I think it's taking a very measured approach, right? In terms of setting certain short-term goals in terms of what you want to achieve, and see whether your strategy is taking you to, getting that to fruition, and if not, then changing tact along the way. Again, P2P system has been there since past many years now. I don't think so. If some of the bets, some companies are making on AI, if it's not yielding results, it's not the end of the world. You can still go back to the earlier ways in which you were, overall running the processes and, making P2P overall work for you. But at the same time, there will be some cases linked to AI which can help you to go over some of the low value add activities. I mean, there have been use cases in terms of repetitive activities within P2P, such as say PR creation, approval, workflows. There are use cases wherein it's working for organizations, wherein they are able to run it more efficiently. There are use cases of AI helping you in terms of taking some decisions. There are use cases of AI helping you to mitigate risks. So yeah, I mean, leverage more on that. That is what my suggestion would be.
And I think also be realistic on what is the thing that you want to achieve by the end of the day. And I feel like for me, as all of us, I'm assuming there's a lot of friction in the process, and it's like a crossroad between legal, security, finance, payment, accounting, and And if you want to use AI, like, what are you trying to achieve? Like, if you want to understand where is the friction at, like, you need to solve it yourself. Like, it's not something like AI is going to be using.
You've touched on something that I wanted to draw out, which is using the P2P strategy, in any procurement strategy, in fact, within the context of the entire business. And increasingly, your strategies are at the very heart, becoming at the very heart of the leadership of the company in a way that it hasn't before. Are you seeing that, and how's that developing?
So I'll address the AI question first, because
Sure,
it's a very fascinating question you asked about what's the future. Let me just hit on that and then come to this piece, because it's interlinked. I think AI has a critical role to play in terms of making making things faster, smarter, and helping the teams focus on what's needed. So right now, if you think about where AI can be most helpful, you touched upon that, Juliet. Procurement sort of sits at the heart of lots of take points, right? Those don't necessarily function seamlessly in every organization. So from a tech perspective, if you ensure the right level of data exchange between different elements of an organization, it sort of all comes to the crux in the procure to pay, because unless that functions well, taking into account your financial position, where you're contractually, legally, so there's a lot of input that goes in there. AI can actually, to your point, Vinay, really use all that data and come up with the right optionality to make the procurement team be more effective in terms of how they decide what they decide. Now that's across supplier selection, supplier management, payments. If procurement is very linked to the treasury function, you can use your payment optionality, payment terms very cleverly to be a value generation, even a revenue generation organization, because there are rebates to be had, there are discounts to be made. That's something that can be done apart from the process aspect, which AI will, I think, help, because with the optimization aspect, you can make more timely decisions that are not rule-based, for this way of supplies, this is how we do. It can be very, very customized, and that's where AI can help. It's difficult for a person to take all these variables and make a decision or a rule to capture everything. But AI-based predictive analytics can actually help with a lot of those. But for that, you need good tag data to train your models, because your model is only as good as the data that's being used, right? But, again, optimization, making a real value center, that's really possible. And then if you think about the future of it, it's, what do we want? We want things that are low value to a certain extent to be automated, so that you've given a certain set of controls, you've got predictive AI that flexes the rules, there are less exceptions, so your tail spend or ad hoc spend should all be relatively automated, because it's not critical to your business. And procurement teams will spend a lot of time really looking at the critical aspect of it. So that's where AI can help consume data, look at different payment optionalities, manage, have that full loop of data to help procurement teams, because these are all thinly staffed teams. You have a lot of decisioning to be done. How do we use AI to augment? So that's where I would see automation selectively, maybe for tail spend, but with AI supporting the decisioning and the controls, and then procurement teams really using data to decide and manage key suppliers better. And then to your point around why is procurement becoming such a key part, we are seeing, because there is a lot of, with all that's happened globally, there's a lot of risk that sits within supplier systems. You've seen single points of failure in the supplier ecosystem, which has resulted in massive issues. So this is becoming very critical, not just from a managing perspective, but also the risk management aspect of it. DORA, for example, which is the digital operational risk, the procurement is at the heart of it, right? Even more so maybe than the CISOs, etc. So that's why this has been elevated. Now we see this as a key part. What keeps CEOs awake? These sort of aspects are very much top of agenda now. So they are, that is getting elevated. It's how AI can help the procurement teams actually answer to the challenges, so to speak.
Are there any questions? I'm just looking at the clock and see we've only got 10 minutes left. So there's a question over here, Kendra. I'd like to move on to talking about people within your evolving strategy, which has got to be addressed. But your questions first.
Hi, yeah, Jenna Wallace, so NCC Group, cybersecurity company. Had a couple of questions actually. The first one was, how much of a role do you think supply chain finance has in current and future P2P strategies? And the second one was more around, if you were recruiting and investing in upskilling a P2P team now from scratch potentially, what sort of skills would you be focused on developing, given that a lot of the processes are being automated?
Brilliant. Supply chain finance first.
I can go. I think fundamentally what supply chain finance has to offer in terms of ensuring that the payment term is being adhered to, suppliers are being paid on time. At the same time, ensuring that there is some level of factoring brought in as well. I think so. Fundamentally, that's not going to change. That still remain. I think so. It's more to do with how it is being implemented. I think so. There will be more of automation in this space. Again, that's also one of the use cases which we have, wherein you compare what is the payment term agreed with a particular supplier, what kind of credit rating they have, and then the system automatically prompts that they can get financing from one of your financiers in return for early discount. So these are the things which we are observing. So fundamentally, the supply chain financing element would not change. I think so. The way it is being executed and operationalized, I think so that might change with the onset of AIs. And I think so. Your second question was sorry.
Upskilling your team, was that right?
Yes. Yeah. I think so. With regards to that, traditionally P2P team members have been more focused in terms of trying to follow the policies, the rules, trying to be more report oriented, a bit more mechanical. I think so. Going ahead, they need to be a bit evolved in the soft skills. I think so. More about engaging with the suppliers, bringing them on board, trying to support the team upstream in terms of any discussions on supplier collaboration. I think so. Those are the kind of skill sets they need to develop, because most of the the reporting related elements probably would be taken care by because of the automation which we are seeing. And I think so to some extent, especially this is more with regards to those who are doing a lot of system development. I think so. Of course, they need to be quite evolved in terms of the AI technology itself, like prompt engineering, trying to run some use cases, be able to quickly analyze what the outcome has been, and then accordingly help in developing new Gen AI's predictive analytics capabilities within the system.
Wayne and Juliet, your organisations have just gone through transformations. So how have you led your teams through those changes in strategies? Have you lost people? Have you upskilled them? How have you dealt with the all-important people side?
So we're busy going through a restructure process as we speak.
Oh, happy days.
But I think there's a few parts to that in terms of, I think it's important to constantly look at upskilling and evolving in terms of things that we're doing today. 5-10 years ago in procurement, we weren't even thinking about it.
Sure.
So yes, there comes in part of our restructures bringing in specific skill sets we don't have, which we need. But I think it's important for us as procurement professionals to constantly evolve. I mean, if you're not learning every day, there's probably a problem, and it's possibly going to be you. So I think it's very important for us to do that. And things are moving at such a pace. I mean, I heard something. Someone said at a conference last year that basically every 5 years we got to constantly reskill ourselves, because if we're not doing that, we're not going to be relevant in terms of our roles. I'm at the same time, I'm not sitting here as an expert on AI. It's something we've got to embrace. It's got to be part of our lives. How can we make the best of it? But that's also when you bring in your I suppose, members into your team to help support those processes or those activities and specialists as well. So what might be relevant today is going to be different again in a few years' time,
Certainly.
even too.
Juliet, what's been your experience?
I think the balancing between critical thinking but also the flexibility in mind. A lot of things can be changing, and I feel like the most success one is actually the one who's able to adapt to the new changes. This is something like I have seen like with my team. Is a lot of friction is going to happen, a lot of back and forth, and the question is like how you're going to be solving. And this is like about like also like visibility. Like we always speak about visibility, but like how it's easily communicated, it's also like the key. And actually, I feel like the procurement team needs to communicate better to make sure like we're bringing value. Yes.
So some people I was speaking to yesterday were talking quite openly about the fact that there are some on their team who are simply going to have to not be with them in the next year or so because they are not going to cope with the new skills required, and describing a wholesale change in roles and jobs as a result of certain platforms, whatever being introduced, and the new technologies we face. How should strategies be changed then to turn your teams around and make them fit for the next 2 years visibility?
I think so the answer over here is reskilling, right? I mean, investing in training them in terms of what is going to be the requirement over the next 2 to 3 years, giving them an opportunity as well to move within the organization, change roles, so that also could be an option.
But it's coming. Any more questions from the gentleman in the middle?
Actually, my question to Binay, because of he's selling the P2P solution. So my question is, we are at maximum organization, yes, using this P2P for long before.
Yes.
In my organization in Bangladesh, Citibank, we are using it from 2013. And from 2022, we also use in our lending solution, AI-based lending solution. But yesterday I attended a workshop where all the supply chain had, the moderator asked the questions, is in your organization, this AI-based supply chain or P2P is implemented or not? Nobody raised their hand. So my question to you, as you are selling the solution and advice about this AI and this, that, so you have a case that you implemented the AI-based P2P and have a success story on that. So actually, whatever we discuss, it sounds good, and I am impressed about all this discussion. But we want to know that in some organization, they implement it and they get the success. We know what the success in AI, as we already implemented our microcredit. So as per, P2P, are you implemented anywhere, including AI?
Yeah, okay. No, that's a very valid question. I think so there's a misconception that, if it's AI-enabled P2P, then it's going to be completely different than the P2P which we know as of now, right? The digital cloud-based solutions. And the answer is it isn't. The only thing is AI is an additional layer which you have on top of your existing platform. So in the case of, the examples, the use cases which I was referring to in terms of, having that conversational style of interaction, again, it's an orchestration layer which you have on top of your existing platform. Likewise, some of the Gen AI, these are basically agents. So you would have created them, and they would go into your data set to come up with, whatever they want to achieve in terms of, prompting you to use the right preferred supplier, or prompting you that, historically you've been buying this quite often, why don't you flip that into a catalog? So again, these are all point solutions which sit on top of your platform. And again, to answer the query regarding use cases, there have been. I'm happy to speak to you after this panel discussion and take this further. Thank you.
In the 90 seconds we have left, I wondered, Tulsi and Vinay, you have a helicopter view, perhaps, of all business industry. Are there any takeaways for the next year, the next 2 years that CPO should be thinking about in terms of their P2P strategies?
I think they should experiment, as I said earlier, right? I mean, now's the time to try, fail, learn from it, and then try again. And the best part is, it doesn't, investment point of view, doesn't cost much to try some of these use cases. It doesn't mean that you need to implement another new system in place. I mean, most of these Gen AI agents, you can run this across multiple platforms, not only just GEP Smart. I mean, whatever P2P platform you currently have, you could run this test cases. So I think so. My suggestion would be to try this. I think it's very important to understand, break it down in terms of your overall P2P process. Which are the ones which are very tactical, low value add processes, which I think so they should start thinking about, how do I automate this? How do I have either AI or machine learning or even the basic RPS, implemented to help free up the time of my resources to focus more on other value-add activities such as say, supplier collaboration or collaboration with say, accounts payable and the FP&A team.
I think very quickly, taking an end-to-end view, not just within the organization, considering different aspects, but taking the view from the supplier aspect as well when you set up your strategies, being bold to plan for the future, so adopting technology that's end-to-end rather than tactically solving for each pain point they have. That's a bigger step, but there is technology, whether it's AI or predictive or generative, there's AI tools that are available that can be leveraged to include more optionality, orchestrate, optimize, and be future ready. But the people aspect is probably the most critical, and constantly upskilling your team, bringing new talent in. The cross-function aspect is so critical. Bringing those aspects in will help prepare the team for the future and also be really like the center of the organization.
Thank you for bringing this panel discussion to an end by talking about the people, because I would like to have spoken more, or we should have spoken more about the impact on our people and how we can take them through that change. I think that's one of the most interesting and important things, among others, to discuss. It's sort of what we're going to be discussing in the next keynote, which is about recruiting an elite procurement team and nicking some good ideas from elite sports teams to do that. It's a brilliant session. That's coming up after the break. But panel, we've skated over so much and touched on a few things and probably missed out loads more. But thank you very, very much indeed for your insights. And can I just check one thing? When you were using a credit card at Wiz for all your procurement, was it MasterCard or was it Visa?
Say MasterCard.
Let's not go there. But panel, thank you very much for your
Thank you.
insight. Thank you.